Yes, I forgot to say that we will record this meeting, but if you are not comfortable to be on camera, feel free to change your name or indeed pop your camera off. So, who are we? We, City of Sanctuary UK, are a small umbrella organisation that I believe punches above our weight. We have about, I think it's 14 part-time staff at the moment, and we have we work with regional coordinators that cover and support groups in different regions, as well as stream leads. When we talk about streams, and we'll hear a lot about this over the course of this afternoon, we talk about sectors, how we engage with mainstream sectors. So we have, I think it's 24 groups-ish that we work with. These are kind of very autonomous, but very local City of Sanctuary groups, and they vary enormously, from registered charities to a collection of volunteers to small local umbrella organizations working with the mainstream. There isn't a kind of a right or wrong way to be a City of Sanctuary group, and indeed their activities are also quite diverse, and we'll hear a little bit more about this later. In addition to our community groups, we also have kind of networks within the network, the City of Sanctuary network, and these are our schools network, our universities, our local authority network, arts organizations, basically mainstream sectors that we engage with. And I think this is a really important part, and something which is quite unique to City of Sanctuary is we genuinely believe that the mainstream sector, be it voluntary or statutory, have a really important part to play in creating welcoming communities and ensuring that their services are inclusive and accessible to people of sanctuary-seeking background. So it is City of Sanctuary as a whole, our community groups, our schools, etc., is a movement which about belonging and welcome for people, for all. And I think this is an important part. It is an inclusion model, but being particularly proud to offer sanctuary to those fleeing war and persecution. So this is what we do, and City of Sanctuary UK, as I said, we do not deliver frontline services, the national organisation. We support our groups to run activities that they feel are needed locally. So we provide coordination, networking opportunities, support, resources, connections, you name it. And we do have a very substantial website which has a lot of kind of know-how and good practice examples, whatever local groups or indeed our mainstream organizations want to get involved in. So our City of Sanctuary groups, as I said, are enormously diverse, not only in their governance structure, but also in what they deliver. And there is, again, no right or wrong. We are grassroots, genuinely grassroots. And so we believe that it is, within local communities and local community groups to decide what is needed locally. I will send the slides, by the way. If you're taking notes, don't worry, I will send the slides and the recording over to you, so don't worry. So it can range, anything from kind of drop-ins, sanctuary visits, to nature, clothing, ESOL. Some also get involved in community sponsorship, befriending, some purely do campaigning, and some, and hopefully most, will do some of this stream work that we'll talk a little bit about, work with the mainstream, encouraging local mainstream organizations to become themselves places of sanctuary. And the reason why we do that, oh, sorry, I've moved on to our impact, is that we want to, the more welcoming places we have, the more kind of schools and universities and councils, etc., the more welcoming they are, the more likely we are to create a kind of a tapestry of welcoming places on a local level that can mitigate against some of the hostile environment policies we have on the national level. But I'll come back to that. So this is our impact, and I have to say I'm very proud that even since this graphic was put together, numbers have gone up. I'm myself local authority network lead, and we are now at 114 local authorities that are kind of around the proverbial table, delivering inclusive services for sanctuary seekers. And yes, I can see we've got 124 groups, 13 libraries and museums, a staggering amount of schools of sanctuary, and I think there's probably about as many as that also kind of somewhere in the process to becoming a school of sanctuary. Gardens, universities, arts organizations. We also develop resource packs. So these are good practice examples that any institution can use to implement our strategic framework for embedding sanctuary within mainstream organizations. We also are really proud to have kind of a network of sanctuary ambassadors. These are people with lived experience that we put very much at the heart of all of our work, and very importantly, at the heart of decision making within our organization as well. So we have quite a wide reach on on social media. We have a fabulous comms manager that supports each and every one of us as staff members, but also our groups. And in 2021, we probably need to update that figure too. We ran 55 webinars and online events that focus on particular themes. And they are not, we always strive to kind of share good practice, you know, where one group, such as Hastings, for example, has done something really wonderful to share that practice, and so that other groups can be inspired and potentially, if feasible, implement similar practices in their place. So it's not us as City of Sanctuary UK telling groups what to do. We provide the forums where groups can inspire one another. I will pause here for a second just to see if there's any questions, or whether Sarah wants to add anything.
Just to pop in, Maggie, and apologies, I have some builders in the background, so hopefully it won't be too loud for you. But just to say that we have a whole host of upcoming events as well, which are all free and online. Some are very specific around supporting FE colleges to become recognized as places of sanctuary, but also regional meetings, schools of sanctuary, and the local authorities network. So I've dropped the link into the chat, and so you can take a look and kind of see what might be things that you are either working on in your area or are relevant to you that might be an interesting opportunity for you to learn more about.
Thanks, Sarah. Anybody else? So far, so good? Great. I will move on. So how do we deliver the change that we want to see? We call this our theory of change. This is how we work. And we work on two levels, a micro level and a macro level. But essentially our activities as a network fall into two categories. One of them is these kind of localized micro level welcoming activities. So anything that facilitates the opportunity to build relationships of solidarity and friendship. And it's grounded in a body of academic literature from social psychology known as social contact theory or social contact hypothesis, which if you haven't come across, I really highly recommend to look at it. But it's a body of literature that stipulates that when people with differences are able to meet and form relationships effectively, you know, prejudices and biases, whether conscious or unconscious, can be minimized or indeed mitigated. So it is this really kind of really stunning, I believe, theory that is very much at the heart of how we build the movement behind the rights of our sanctuary seeking friends. So Social contact, so anything, as you can imagine, if you have a befriending program or a drop-in session or kind of informal ESOL classes, that is something where people from established communities are able to come and meet people of sanctuary-seeking backgrounds and really identify with them and the challenges they face of being seeking sanctuary in the UK, or indeed being new arrivals in a place that is really different perhaps to their home country. So this is on the micro level, and the idea is that once people have the opportunity to empathize and have compassion for people seeking sanctuary, then they feel compelled to take action. And this then translates to work with the mainstream, joining campaigns, or indeed calling for more effective and more humane policy on a national level. So as you can see from the theory of change, in terms of the macro level, we work with mainstream organizations. We implement what we call the Sanctuary Award framework. And this is the framework for institutional and cultural change within mainstream institutions, which kind of encourages them to embed policy and practice of which is inclusive to people of sanctuary-seeking background. And I'll come on to some case studies which hopefully will bring it home a little bit more and make it more tangible. But every single award process, whether you're a school or whether you are a university or a local authority, will have three elements. And those are the learn element, the embed element, and the share element. And it's really within that learn element where local groups and local refugee organizations and people with lived experience can create opportunities for people working, as receptionists at councils or librarians in libraries to learn and engage with the subject of what it means to be seeking sanctuary, why people are displaced, what are the challenges they face. And by doing that, we say that we reach beyond our sector, we reach beyond those who are already sensitive to the plight of refugees in the UK. And this is what makes the model really clever, is that we're able to, as part of this strategic framework, engage with people that we normally, as a sector, wouldn't have had the opportunity to. And also for people who haven't had the opportunity to learn directly from people seeking sanctuary or those representing them about how difficult it is to be faced with hostile environment policies. I hope I have covered this okay. Sarah, did you want to come in?
No, you're doing great. Thanks, Maggie.
So, moving on to our values, and I want to just share a few words from my personal experience being part of the staff team, but also being, part of this quite large network. If you take all the group members, and indeed our mainstream organizations, it is one of the best networks to be a part of. There is a true sense of inclusiveness, of openness, integrity, working in partnership, and looking for solutions to what are some really challenging issues. We also really pride ourselves in putting people with lived experience at the heart of everything that we do. And we very recently had our conference, indeed that was last week, where we really saw people with lived experience, our sanctuary ambassadors, taking a lead and leading us into this just really wonderful day together that we had. And what I'm really proud about is to see how many groups have ensured that within their membership, people with lived experience have an opportunity to be a part, to contribute. So participation is something we really pride ourselves in, and we have achieved a lot, certainly over the past couple of years, in ensuring that we are truly kind of implementing nothing about us without us practices. And inspiration, of course, it's about you know, we're not hierarchical in any way. We very much learn from groups and kind of transplant know-how to other places, and it is about inspiring one another and ensuring that we can move together in one direction. Just going to quickly see. Oh, Sarah is. Thank you, Sarah. And as a staff member, I just wanted to say that it's one of the most supportive places I have ever had the pleasure of working, and it's this ethos and these values that our groups practice on a local level as well.
Can I just add in there, because I was at the conference last week and it was the first time kind of meeting everybody, and everything that you've just said really, really resonates with what I saw last week as a new person kind of coming into the organisation and meeting lots of people from the networks and from the groups as well as the UK group. So yeah, definitely, Maggie, I completely concur with everything you've just said.
Thank you. Sarah?
I just wanted to mention, obviously, those values that you saw up on the slide before, they come out of a document, which is our charter, which I'll include the link in a moment, and we'll send it around as well. It's a little bit of a lengthier document, but it provides a little bit of the framework for how we work and why we work in these ways. And it developed out of some meetings that were held in Birmingham in 2014, 2015, in order to kind of coalesce this union, these networks around some shared values. So it's been created out of a generative evolving process in discussions between what was then the City of Sanctuary staff team as well as all the local groups. And we definitely hope that if you're a group or an institution looking for a Sanctuary Award, or however you want to engage with the City of Sanctuary movement, you'll have an opportunity to kind of look through and think about the charter, and hopefully those values will resonate with you and your institutions. That's it.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you both. So what we want, I think this will be a no-brainer to many of you who are probably coming here already being really sensitive to these issues. But we believe that people seeking safety in the UK should be able to do that no matter how they arrive here. And as we know, there is various schemes with various eligibility criteria in terms of access to public funds, etc. We don't differentiate between how people have come here, and we indeed want to see all of them have the opportunity to thrive in the UK and live in dignity. So we want to see as well, and we often join campaigns, support our campaigning partners in calling for a fairer, faster and more efficient system to decide whether people will be granted protection or not. At the moment, we in the UK are seeing a huge backlog of people stuck in legal limbo, effectively not being able to continue to rebuild their lives, and I think this is such a shame and a profound loss of human life and human potential, because during that period of waiting, people lose skills, they become isolated, their kind of mental well-being or just well-being generally is impacted really severely as well. We also want to see people seeking sanctuary and their local communities build better futures together. So we really believe in a collaborative approach, and we want to see local councils that host refugees be adequately supported. And I will, as a local authority leader, I will tell you a little bit more when we come onto the case study of the Council of Sanctuary Stream. Okay, so the Sanctuary Awards, as I said, So the Sanctuary Awards, as I said, are our tool for cultural and institutional change, and it's how us at City of Sanctuary UK and our local groups work together with mainstream organisations to promote this kind of embedding and practice welcome. Sometimes it is easier for mainstream institutions to kind of use welcome and integration kind of interchangeably, but this is really what we mean. Is we want to ensure that you know, our mainstream organizations play their part. It is, as I said earlier, it is a tool also for movement building. So by making these opportunities for people to learn about people seeking sanctuary, it brings them hopefully behind the movement, and this is grounded again in research that was done some time ago. Was it by IMEX, Sarah? It was by IMEX, wasn't it? Yeah, whereby let me just got my camera off, sorry. So we have the kind of people and how they feel about migration can be plotted along the spectrum. And so kind of on one end, we have about 25% who are people like probably us here in this room, who are very sensitive, and we are supportive of migration. We see the value and the benefits to everyone. Then on the other end of the spectrum, we have about 25% who are people we are quite unlikely to convince. They are very anti-immigration. They have brought into the kind of these negative narratives around migration. And so in the middle, we have about 50% that what we call, or this research calls, the anxious middle. And these are really the people we are trying to reach, people who, again, themselves fall within the spectrum, but people who haven't had an opportunity to really properly grapple and engage with the subject, to understand, you know, how migration works, and certainly forced migration in our context. And so really by using this Sanctuary Awards, and you know, the award itself is not about the kind of destination, but it really is about the journey any institution takes to becoming a genuine place of sanctuary. It's through that process that we reach people, that we are in that anxious middle, in the hope that they will join that 25% that is kind of sensitive to refugee issues and migration more generally. So every award, as I said, has these three elements: learn, embed, and share. And underneath each of those, we have specific criteria which are specific to that sector, effectively. And I will give you an example with the Local Authorities Network next. So I will move on. Have I missed anything? Anything on that? Yes, as I mentioned earlier, I won't repeat this again. I think I probably mentioned it, but I see there is a separate. I should have said I wasn't supposed to be doing this presentation, but a lot of our colleagues are not feeling very well today, so I've just stepped in as a very much a second best person. But hopefully it gives you enough of an idea. So people with lived experience are at the heart of what we do. They're our friends, and we have some incredible people with lived experience, our sanctuary ambassadors, who are doing enormous amount of work to kind of lead and be very much a big part of the decision making within our organization and within our groups. We also have the operational advisory group, which is a kind of a body within our governance structure that advises our board of trustees. That's right? Yeah, good.
I should also just jump in and take the opportunity to say that 50% of our board of trustees is people with lived experience. And we really see it as crucial to all of us working as a staff team to really be advised by those who are living this. And you will probably note from Maggie and my own accents that we are migrants as well, who've experienced, you know, moving and arriving into the UK. And so trying to take our own experiences of what made us feel welcome and accepted into our communities has helped inform the way that we approach our work.
I think also about 50% of our staff team, last time I counted, are of migrant background as well.
And we have 2 staff with lived experience of forced displacement.
Yeah, So we very much strive, like I said, to kind of have that lived experience across the organisation. And I'm so happy that we're achieving this. I know it's something a lot of charities and volunteer organisations do grapple with, this, having people with lived experience, whatever the cause they're working on is. And so it's really great that we have managed to achieve this. So this is where hopefully things will become a little bit more tangible. And so we've got 2 case studies. One of them is of a group and how they work, and the second one is of a stream. And as I said, I've chosen local authorities because that's the one I know best, but I've got Sarah here who can say a few words about schools of sanctuary. She put together the resource pack for schools, and so maybe really briefly she can mention that before we kind of wind down and go to have a bit of a discussion. So Lewisham is indeed our first kind of borough of sanctuary, borough council of sanctuary, probably should say. But we have a really incredible group. Oops, do I need to see this? Oh yeah, sorry. So the group themselves have taken a really interesting approach. So they set up a forum locally and had a variety of local refugee organizations represented on that forum. They did listening exercises with members of their community and especially people with lived experience, and came up with a plan as to how they will collectively ensure that a welcome practice of welcome is embedded in their local area, in their borough. They are really strong in terms of working with mainstream organizations, and in particular working with their council, also with health providers. They engage in campaigns as well. Interestingly, I think that they're now working with their university. I think Goldsmiths is there locally as well, and so they are one of our kind of a group that we're really, really proud of. And so they also have regular kind of multi-agency meetings that take place. And one of the things they have done really well is over time ensure that sanctuary seekers are part of the forum, which I know is something that they really struggled to begin with. So as I said before, if you're thinking about setting up a group or joining a group, there isn't one way of doing it. I think what's been interesting within with the Lewisham example is that their sanctuary work sits within a campaigns team in a local refugee organization. And going through the process in terms of becoming a borough of sanctuary and their local plan, they're now transplanting this to Greenwich and also Southwark, and are leading the local groups there as well to kind of set their own city of sanctuary groups. Is that okay? Is there anything more I need to mention? This again is just one example of how you can have a group.
Yeah, I would just say our work with councils has grown principally out of, as some of you may be familiar with, the idea of having a citywide recognition of city of sanctuary. So in the earlier days, we had cities like Bradford or Newcastle that became sort of designated city of sanctuaries. What we found is that because the interest in what we're trying to do has grown so significantly, that doing appraisals of a full city by those of us on the national team just isn't practical. And what we were realizing is fundamentally what we wanted to do was support councils to take a central role in looking across all of their services for people who are seeking sanctuary and thinking about how can they help implement policies that were really welcoming and serve as a way to bring together, you know, all the different kinds of institutions, whether it's libraries or whether it's some of the educational institutions like an FE college or the local schools. So I think what's quite nice is now over the last 2 years in particular, with the growth of the council work, particularly led by Maggie, and complemented by some of the great expansion in some of the educational institutions. We now see cities that perhaps, are even more places of sanctuary than, when they were originally recognized several years ago, because they have more institutions involved with them. I don't know, Maggie, if you want me to say a few words about schools of sanctuary now, or
I was just going to go on to the local authorities work.
Oh, okay, I'll let you take over then.
Yeah. So yeah, this is about setting up a group, but it's really handy, and I have to say, having this kind of multi-agency space to discuss local gaps has been really, really vital, because unless you know what exactly the needs are, it's really difficult to know how to address them. So I will move on to a case study, the local authorities network. So I've said a little bit about it, in a nutshell, it is a collection of local authorities around the UK who are committed to applying solidarity-based approaches to do work with and for people of sanctuary-seeking background. As I said to you, these, whether you're a local authority or a school or a college, every single organisation will have to go through the learn, embed and share elements with their own unique criteria. At City of Sanctuary UK, we have stream leads. So I am stream lead for local authorities. Sarah support and Megan are stream leads for schools. My colleague Ashley is stream lead for arts museums, arts organizations, museums and libraries. We have a faith stream. Sarah is also a lead for colleges. And so we as staff members can support local groups to ensure that they first and foremost kind of understand the process, how it all works, how assessment work. And I have to say, over the past few years, we have become really rigorous, kind of wanting to preserve the integrity and ensure that there is consistency in, ensuring that, the process is consistent, between different areas. So we as UK staff members, stream leads, can support you to ensure that that happens. A lot of us have a sector interest or sector experience, so we understand how that particular sector works, how you as a group can make the best of engaging with this organisation, and so again, we are here to support our groups to reach out to their mainstream organisations. So for councils of sanctuary, the process usually starts with the council passing a motion. I have to say, in many cases, these motions are written, or at the very least, local groups contribute to the motions. We've got many examples on our website. Another criterion, kind of, if you see the top band there, the more general, it says written, not written, sorry, apologies, I will correct that typo. Collaboration with stakeholders, both local and national, whether that's us as a City of Sanctuary team, or indeed the network, the local authorities network itself, or local stakeholders, voluntary sector groups, health partners, etc., etc. So we really want to ensure that the council doesn't forge on its own, but really has that kind of collaborative spirit, and also works hard to co-create their work together with people with lived experience and organizations representing people with lived experience as well. Really, probably the kind of most key criterion to becoming a council of sanctuary is this written strategy, which is the council policy as to how they will get their institution to be inclusive, but how they will work beyond in the community to use their platform to ensure that other organizations and institutions are inclusive too. As I said before, what the learn element means in the context of local authorities, but all of our streams, is training for staff, ensuring that all staff have this opportunity to understand, what is a refugee, what is an asylum seeker, the different schemes, but also where possible. And we really want to ensure that staff members within every institution have the opportunity to learn directly from people with lived experience who have interacted with their services, for example. We also talk about embed, and really in the context of local authorities is kind of tweaking, uplifting, if you will, their existing services to ensure that people with lived experience seeking sanctuary can access them. So I've got a really good graphic recently. In local authorities, we often talk about hard to reach groups. And it's kind of turning that on its head and saying there are no such people as hard to reach people. It's hard to reach services. So it is within the power of a local authority or any other organization to ensure that their services are not hard to reach for this particular group of people, and in fact all people who find themselves at a disadvantage. In terms of embedding, and this is a real challenge, especially where you have very big organizations or institutions like local authorities or universities, is to ensure that this kind of culture of welcome, of inclusion is embedded across all levels, whether it's your councillors or indeed your kind of heads of service officers or indeed frontline staff. And this is something that through the embed process we look for. And community cohesion, it's again another word that we are often, phrase that we often hear about, and it's about what the local authority does in terms of the positive tone that it sets within their communities to ensure that there is, that they're building strong, cohesive communities. And in terms of share, my apologies, it is about that public commitment. It's about communicating with the local authorities network itself, sharing good practice. It is what they put out via their comms teams in terms of that much more positive counter narrative to what people may hear in tabloid or indeed, sadly, mainstream media. So it's using their platform for better narrative, better communication around what it is to be seeking sanctuary and the value and contribution of people who have been displaced and have rebuilt or are rebuilding their lives here in the local community. So why is it needed? I just need to move my screen across. So we're living through times where displacement is internationally is huge globally. We've got just under 90 million people who are forcibly displaced, and over the past, well, since August of 2021, we've had two major humanitarian crises, and I really foresee another one with the events that are happening in Iran. Another kind of quite a big displacement of people potentially. So, sadly, forced migration is not going away, and I think it's about what we do as a country to play our part, not more, not less, but be a part in sharing the responsibility for fellow human beings. So in the UK, in case you haven't noticed, we do have hostile policies. They are changing, ever-changing, very complex, and sadly, even when a person comes to be here, their nightmare isn't over. And in fact, a lot of people going through the asylum process often become re-traumatized because of their experience here in the UK. So this is what we are actively trying to affect. The rhetoric, as I said, is very negative. I personally, as a Bulgarian, have been on the receiving end of tabloid media calling us scroungers on the one hand, and then at the same time taking people's jobs, which is a little bit counterintuitive, but it is really quite sad to be on the receiving end, and those fleeing for their lives, so refugees in particular, and those arriving via channel crossings are having a much worse of a time than I ever have. So I can only imagine you know, how damaging it is to hear these news and to experience some of the impact from that in the community you're supposed to be seeking safety. Again, there is quite a lot of anti-migration narrative as well. So, you know, we try to actively combat this by promoting this community cohesion and anti-racism. And there's a really neat graphic there that, you know, sadly, our sector receives a lot of negative attention, usually negative attention, but really what we're talking about here is a really tiny proportion of the UK population. So it's often the challenges are overstated in terms of our ability to being able to welcome people. So I've already covered these in terms of how we work, but if you were thinking of starting a group, the first thing to do is to check, or indeed if you're an organization wanting to see what is needed locally, is finding your nearest City of Sanctuary group, or indeed getting in touch with the regional coordinators. I am coordinator for Midlands East and South East. Leslie here is Yorkshire, Humber and part of North East. That's right, that's right. And we have one for all regions. And that is probably your first point, just because we don't want to replicate and we want to ensure that people can kind of join existing groups if they exist. If there isn't one, then please do consider starting one. Starting a group can vary quite a lot. And as I said, some City of Sanctuary groups can sit within an existing refugee organization and focus on, you know, work with the mainstream. Some are just a collection of really well-meaning volunteers. Or indeed there's a kind of local umbrella organizations being set up. But one of the things I wanted to say is just start somewhere. There's plenty of support within our City of Sanctuary team to help you on that process. But don't be discouraged if you only have, you know, 4 or 5 people who are initially part of your group. We can help you with some good practices how you can grow your local networks. Yes, our website has so much information already as to steps that you can take, a lot of good practice examples, but we're not prescriptive as a national organization. As long as you adhere to our values, you're very much free to decide what is needed and what you focus on locally. We do have monthly newsletters for not just the kind of City of Sanctuary UK letter, but also for specific streams of work as well, like schools and unis. I do a regular mailing for local authorities as well, which is aimed both at local authorities or groups working with them. Again, our events as well, which are more often than not thematic, and they can help you as well. We have huge amounts of recordings of past events as well. So if you wanted to get a feel for how we work, what the discussions are, please feel free to go to past events and you will find the recordings on the pages of our past events. And that's it. Sorry, I've probably taken more time than I would have liked to. Ooh, there we go.
Thank you, Maggie, for jumping into the breach there today for colleagues. I know we've had a lot of information thrown at you today, and we don't have too much time for interaction questions, but obviously we're here to kind of answer questions and offer support. So I don't know if anyone has any initial reactions. I think, Maggie, in the course of our discussion, did mention that I work on schools of sanctuary. So if you are interested in learning about schools of sanctuary, our work has grown exponentially over the last 3 years. We now have over 360 schools of sanctuary, and we have had at least, I think it's about 70 at last count in the last year. So if you want more information on schools of sanctuary, I'm your person, and we have a resource pack which we've put together to help groups and schools guide them through the process. We also have some upcoming webinars, and I'll drop them in. It looks like Sahar has her hand up. What would you like to ask or comment on?
Yeah, well, first, thank you very much for this information. Yeah, I found it very useful. Just I have a question, and if you can share your best practices around engaging local authorities. I personally have been active around the City of Sanctuary in Aberdeen for years, and it just happened, and this is before pandemic, like the person who started the initiative left, and then after she left, like everybody just forgot. And like a year ago, Aberdeen became a dispersal city, and we have now a lot of asylum seekers in hotels, and Afghan and Ukrainian. And I know from experience, the main thing, in my view, maybe I'm wrong, is having the local authority as a someone has that pressure or weight on making things move, say, quicker, or in more aligned way, if you like, because on individuals and groups level, things are great, working great, really. But and personally, it's the only incident when I'm facing problems or barrier or blockages, it's unfortunately coming from the local authority.
Aberdeen should do join our thematic meetings.
Yes. Sarah, I was asking about something, and Sarah said I will register after this meeting, yes, to attend the coming one.
Yeah, but I think the council do actually attend as well. So they're clearly interested. So it's probably something that we can take offline to talk about. But generally speaking, there's several ways in which you can engage if you're a local group or from a local organization. Is you can always, and your local representatives, they have to do casework, much like MPs. So they have to respond to you. And if they don't, they're really bad councillors. You can also get in touch with the cabinet member within whose kind of responsibility for oversight of this particular area falls. Or if you find the details of an officer that is responsible as well. I think with everything City of Sanctuary is about relationship building, and I think it's really important to be as collaborative as possible. I think a lot of local authorities are under a lot of pressure, and they are looking to partner with the voluntary sector as much as possible. They recognise that they're not always best placed to do everything. And certainly in Scotland, a lot of the local authorities are quite progressive as well. So hopefully that gives you a kind of a little bit of reassurance that they may be willing to listen and are probably on board with what you are hoping.
Yeah, don't get me wrong here, please. I agree with that, and I appreciate the pressure. That's very true. But sometimes when you do things a little bit differently, they just are not happy. They prefer they lead, and sometimes they just can't, and either they don't have the staff or they don't know also.
Yeah, so I would say, cabinet member, your own representative who absolutely has to respond, or try with an officer if you know their email address. But feel free to email me. I'll pop my email in there, and we can kind of look at the challenges and see what the best way to kind of engage with them is.
Michael, looks like you have your hand up.
Hi, yeah. Hi, I'm Mike. Hope you can hear me okay. Yeah, so this is all very new to me. And I'm in Sheffield. I put that in the chat. So I'd heard that Sheffield was designated a city of sanctuary. So yeah, yeah. So I think for me, I'm not I'm doing lots of things already, so I don't think there's a need to sort of start a group here in Sheffield. It's already been designated. But in terms of engaging the right people for the local charity that I've just started working with, because it's a city of sanctuary, would I go straight to the local authority then? Or should I be, there is a local sanctuary office,
Yeah.
and I could just wander down there, walk past there a lot in the city centre. Just not sure which route to go down.
Great. Well, it's so nice to have you. What I would recommend, I'll put my email in the chat as well, and so you can drop me a line. I will connect you with Tom Martin, who is the head of City of Sanctuary. He's the director of City of Sanctuary in Sheffield. He is working at the sanctuary, so hopefully he can invite you down to have a chat and a conversation about the work that is already ongoing and how maybe your new work and your charity can get connected to that and be supported by it. So yeah, there's lots of different ways. I mean, Sheffield, because it is the foundational home, and we didn't have enough time to go into the whole history of how we got started, but it was started by a Methodist minister back in 2005 in Sheffield. So Sheffield really is kind of the center of the start of the sanctuary movement, and there's a lot of great things going on there. But I'll pop my email in the chat for everyone. So if there's any questions you have about schools of sanctuary or things going on, particularly in Yorkshire and the Northeast, as that's where I have been working, I can certainly answer those questions.
Oh, brilliant. Thanks, Sarah. That's much appreciated. Yeah, I'll do that.
We have more questions. I don't know if we've got any in the chat. No.
I don't see any. I've been trying to pop in as we've gone along some of the upcoming events which might be of interest. One thing I should also say is that we also, so obviously we have these streams and things that we do work on, like schools or universities, and we always are planning ahead and creating webinars around those to showcase institutions. But we also respond to kind of requests for things that are needed. So for example, in the schools work, we had a lot of teachers coming to us last spring saying, what are ideas for supporting well-being of new arrivals? And this was particularly on the back of Ukrainians coming into new schools and Afghans arriving last fall. And so we created a session around, using some psychology tools and referencing some some organizations that are creating resources for that. So if you in your work locally come across an issue or a theme or something that you'd like to explore further, always reach out to us, because we'd love to kind of either hear good practice that we can share or try and do a little research and bring together ideas around what would be good online events about things that people are grappling with. So we've done everything from befriending to starting up an organization to, we've done things we partnered with the DBS to find out, how volunteer teams figure out who and when DBS checks are needed in line with safeguarding. So a lot of it, some of it can be from the very practical to the very big. And we also work with a lot of partner organizations like IMEX or Asylum Matters is another big partner on the campaigning front. So if you are interested in doing more around campaigning, like together.
Do a lot of campaigning. Oh, don't they, Marie?
Yeah. Oh, I see a message. Let me see. Oh, thanks, Keely. Yeah. I know there are a few colleges represented here, and it's fantastic. And it's lovely to see some of the team from Peterborough who are in the process of going through the applications for a sanctuary award. We have another event next week for colleges specifically.
And we also have the local authorities thematic forum next week. If you are, Sahar, particularly interested in that, it will very much focus on move-on support. So how local authorities and local groups and indeed housing associations and private sector are working together to help provide that longer term housing. So it's very kind of thematic, but you're always welcome to join as groups hoping to work with your local authorities as well. I think we've got 1 minute left. If you do want to ask anything, please don't be shy. I know it's a lot of information, but Oh, Marie, you're muted. Marie, you're muted.
Okay. Are you picking up any kind of difficulties around community groups supporting refugees in terms of people not working together, but maybe working against each other?
Well, I'll try and answer that from my own experience working as Reading City of Sanctuary coordinator. There is a little bit of local politics, yes, because I think a lot of organizations are chasing funding, so there is a little bit of competition, but you know, it's our values and our ethos is one of collaboration and, you know, trying very hard not to replicate work, but rather to work together. So I hope that our groups are doing that as well. I think it's inevitable within, you know, a very underfunded sector where people are so tired, where people are, you know, constantly frustrated, that you would have some issues. But you know, even between local groups and our mainstream organizations, where, you know, local groups are not entirely happy with, you know, how a mainstream organization has done things as well. So we can be a little bit of a mediating voice in ensuring that people kind of get around the table and discuss. But yes, there are issues. It's not plain sailing for sure.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. And final, looks like, okay. I think, thank you all for coming today. I popped in my email in the chat, as well as our main info email, which always gets sort of funneled to the right place. A big thank you to Maggie, who jumped in at the last minute to help out today. We will send around links with all the slides, as well as some of the information that was shared in the chat. It's so lovely to see you all. And if, again, please be in touch if we can help in any way. But thank you for being interested in promoting Sanctuary.
Thank you.
Thanks.